And it's something we've talked about in the past, and it's the fentanyl crisis in America. And it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And the reason that I wanted to touch base with this topic is we have talked about this in the past, is there's a bunch of articles that have come out about fentanyl in the past couple weeks, and I think that they're, fairly notable. So for those of you who don't know about fentanyl, you can either check out the old segment or I can just kind of recap it. So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. So it's a painkiller. Now, fentanyl has been used in surgery for decades. It's a great painkiller, and we use it in medicine in the correct way literally all the time. But what's happened now is people are creating it synthetically. It's created a lot in India and China as either the complete drug or a precursor. And then what happens is these cartels in Mexico buy it, and then it's brought into the United States and sold as a recreational drug. And when I first heard about fentanyl, I was like, who's stealing all the fentanyl from the hospitals? Because I just assumed that was what was happening, which was naive. But what's happening is it's getting created in labs and being shipped into the United States. And over the past 10 years, we've just seen a explosion of fentanyl in the streets, and more worrisome is the number of deaths. So one of the
scary.
It's scary, man. And I'm gonna throw some numbers out here that you may not even believe, but I promise you that they're accurate. So the provisional data for 2022 was just released in the past couple of weeks by the CDC, and what that means is they evaluated the data on the number of drug overdose deaths in the United States, and now they're kind of releasing that information. And so for 2022, there was around 107,000 overdose deaths from all drugs, okay? 68%, which equals 72,000 people, were determined to be either from fentanyl or one of the fentanyl derivatives.
Yeah, I know it's like a small dose can push you over the edge.
You're really smart. Is it because that you're here and we talk about this?
Yeah, I guess. But I think last time we talked about it, or I don't remember if I said this, but there was a news story about how some child died.
We're gonna talk about it.
You're talking about that now?
Yeah, we're going to.
Okay, cool.
That's good. See, I love that. You're so smart. So 72,000 deaths last year, fentanyl. So for reference, that's 200 people per day. That's more than car crashes, which is 43,000, and every homicide, which is 26,000 combined. That's a staggering number of people that are dying from fentanyl. And the reason people are dying is because fentanyl is so potent. So you've heard of morphine, right? It's the drug they use for painkiller. Fentanyl is 100 times stronger than morphine and 50 times stronger than heroin. And not only that, there's derivatives of fentanyl that are up to 100 times more powerful than just base fentanyl. This stuff is so potent that as little as 2 milligrams of just generic fentanyl can kill an adult. 2 milligrams. You know how much when you take ibuprofen, you take 800 milligrams? 2 milligrams of fentanyl can kill you. And so that's why there's just so many deaths.
That is wild.
So the other things that have been in the news, and you hit on it, is the number of kids that are dying of this accidentally. And so there's been a couple of stories. There was a story about a French couple that came over to the United States. It was a year or two ago, and they stayed at Airbnb.
Yes, that's the
story. Is that the one? And
their
18-month-old daughter was found unresponsive and foaming at the mouth, and no one knew what happened. Well, they did toxicology, and the kid died of acute fentanyl toxicity. And so it was found out that Airbnb that they stayed out had some big party at it the week before. And so they don't know how it happened, if it was residual fentanyl powder or maybe a pill or what, but somehow it
depends on I hope that kids are always on the floor.
Yeah. They put stuff in their mouths.
Put her hands down, put in her face.
So one of the scariest things is looking at, this is CDC data for deaths in the 5 and under age group. In 2015, there was 10 deaths from accidental poisoning from opioids. In 2021, there was 135. So that's an increase of 1,200% in the span of 5 or 6 years of kids 5 and under dying from accidental fentanyl overdose. And now it's you can pull up child fentanyl death, and you will see news articles literally every week.
Yeah.
Because right now we're getting 2 to 3 kids a week dying from fentanyl overdose.
And then aren't other drugs being laced with that stuff?
That's exactly
to make
right.
it more addictive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what's happening is the cartels know that fentanyl is so addictive that they're putting in other drugs, and that's how a lot of kids, not babies or toddlers, but high school kids, teenagers, college kids are buying drugs that they're not told that it's fentanyl, and then it is fentanyl, and they take too much and they die. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's a huge problem. And you know, if you have kids, you know, and we've talked to our kids, like both my daughter and my son, about the dangers. And it's so funny because I feel like such an old person, because remember when we were growing up, and I know I'm a little older than you, but when we were growing up, it's like, oh, drugs are bad, and you know, really, I mean, they were bad, but I mean, people weren't like dropping dead. I mean, now people are literally dying, and by the tens and thousands or hundred thousands. I mean, if you have kids, you need to talk to them, because this is a massive problem, and it's a problem like in the cities, and it's a problem in the suburbs, and it's a problem like in the rural areas, that this fentanyl is just everywhere. And you can see that in the number of you know, drug seizures that are happening, the number of deaths that are happening. We know a person that died of a fentanyl overdose in our town.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I literally know somebody that died of a fentanyl overdose myself. So if you think that someone may be having, you know, an issue with fentanyl, there are symptoms that you might recognize. Mostly people who have acute fentanyl toxicity will be unresponsive. Who is unresponsive? Remember Madonna? I'm not saying it's fentanyl, but I'm just saying. But unresponsiveness, slow or just completely stopped breathing, pale or cool skin, cyanosis, which is like a blue kind of color to the skin, vomiting, and pinpoint pupils.
Okay.
And so those would be the symptoms that someone would be displaying if they were having an acute fentanyl toxicity episode. And I just think that people just need to be aware that this is out there. So what is the treatment? Well, obviously, if you think someone's having an acute overdose, call 911. Obviously, the most important thing. Rescue breathing is good. If someone's not breathing, they need rescue breathing, or they will die.
Yeah.
And then I think this is probably the most important thing is Narcan, or naloxone, which is the generic name. We have Narcan in our house. I think that if you have a kid of junior high or higher or older age bracket, that you can go to a pharmacy, you don't need a prescription, you can buy Narcan. I think it's like $50, like CVS has it, Walgreens. There's no harm in giving Narcan to someone if they're not actually having an episode. It's a harmless drug. It will not hurt somebody.
Yeah.
But it absolutely 100% can save someone's life if they're overdosing on fentanyl or other narcotics. And it's not like a shot or anything. It's a nasal spray. Like you literally it's like taking Afrin. You just spray it up someone's nose. This is really important. If you or someone you know has kids, they need to be aware that this stuff's out there. Narcan can literally save lives. Like I'm going to start carrying it in my car too. Like we have several doses at our house just in case, but I'm going to start carrying it in my truck as well. Because I mean, when 200 people a day are dying from fentanyl overdoses, I mean, there is a real chance that you might come across somebody that's suffering from that. So scary stuff.
Wild.
Sarah, have you ever heard of fentanyl?
I have, but you know what? I feel like I learned a lot just now, because I had no idea how strong that drug is.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's really crazy scary of how fast it's killing people, especially children.
Yeah.
Like it's just sad. But
Totally. So I think the biggest thing is just making people aware. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that just don't know that this is out there. And that's why I think it's important to talk about it. And
Definitely.
you know, Robert De Niro, his grandson died of fentanyl overdose just this week. Yeah, not his son, his grandson. It's crazy. I mean, it's
Because it can be put in.
Allegedly,
cocaine
he
and
bought
stuff.
he supposedly bought pills, but they weren't supposed to be fentanyl, but they were laced with fentanyl. It's crazy.
That's very scary.